Now, in a devastating development, the United Nations has officially declared a famine in Gaza, marking the first famine declaration in the region and the first in the Middle East. Experts warn that 5 lakh people are facing catastrophic hunger. This grim announcement comes nearly 2 years into the ongoing conflict triggered by Hamas's October 7 incursion, compounded by severe restrictions on food and humanitarian aid entering Gaza. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights stated that the famine in Gaza results from unlawful restrictions imposed by Israel on aid entry and distribution, with starvation being used as a weapon of war. According to the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, over 500,000 people in Gaza, including Gaza City and its surroundings, are experiencing catastrophic hunger, with conditions expected to worsen and spread further in the coming weeks. Families are going days without food, while vulnerable populations such as children and the elderly and the disabled are bearing the greatest burden. Healthcare systems have collapsed under the strain. Gaza's health ministry reports that in the past 24 hours, 2 more people have died from starvation. This brings the total deaths from malnutrition and starvation to 273, including 112 children. UN officials described this famine as a man-made disaster and a moral indictment, emphasizing that it is not merely a lack of food but the deliberate collapse of systems vital for survival. Amid calls for immediate ceasefire and unfettered humanitarian access, this famine starkly underscores the urgent need for global action to prevent further loss of innocent lives. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the UN declaration, calling the report an outright lie. Israeli airstrikes continue to cause heavy casualties, with at least 37 people killed in recent strikes. Humanitarian organizations like UNICEF and Doctors Without Borders warn of a dire child survival crisis, with widespread starvation and disease amidst Israel's ongoing military operations in Gaza. Since October 2023, the conflict has resulted in over 62,000 Palestinian deaths and more than 157,000 injuries, while Israel has suffered over 1,100 fatalities and numerous abductions.
It is a famine that hits the most vulnerable first.
Famine has been formally declared in parts of Gaza almost 2 years since Israel's invasion, and critically low supplies of fortified milk and special nutritious pastes are exacerbating the food shortages. Aid agencies, malnutrition experts and the United Nations warn. That's endangering already hungry young children. Almost a quarter of Gaza's population faces starvation. The world's main hunger monitor, the IPC, reported on Friday. This is 8-month-old Hatim. Before his mother, Aisha Wahdan, brought him into the Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza City, she says she was trying to wean him on herbs because she could not breastfeed him. But without milk, she said, he could never get full and his weight dropped. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC, said Gaza City and its surrounding areas were officially suffering from famine and that it would likely spread. It warned that without a ceasefire and immediate large-scale and unimpeded aid, at least 132,000 children under the age of 5 were at risk of death from acute malnutrition through to June next year.
I tried everything because there was no milk substitute. A carton of milk lasts 4 days for a child who is fully weaned. Milk has become expensive, 200 to 50 shekels. No one could buy a carton of milk. It wasn't even available to buy.
The UN's Human Rights Office said the famine was, quote, the direct result of actions taken by the Israeli government and may amount to a war crime. After a global outcry at its months-long aid blockade, Israel began allowing food into Gaza in late July. But it hasn't been enough to stop more people becoming malnourished or to allow treatment to reach those whose lives were threatened, the sources said. According to a nutrition expert for the World Health Organization, when malnourished people do not get specialized supplements alongside normal nutritious food, their condition deteriorates. Jeanette Bailey is a nutrition expert at the International Rescue Committee.
We are seeing the worst possible humanitarian catastrophe that is possible, that we can even measure. So it's just going to be a lot more children dying, a lot more pregnant and lactating women suffering from malnutrition and unable to give birth to healthy children.
There is no famine in Gaza, read a social media post on Friday from Israel's foreign ministry. Israel dismissed the IPC report as false and biased, based on figures largely provided by Hamas that don't take into account the recent influx of food. It disputes the hunger fatality figures given by Gaza's health ministry and argues those deaths were due to other medical causes. 3-year-old Abdurrahman shows signs of weight loss and severe malnutrition. Doctors at Nasser Hospital say malnutrition in childhood can cause lifelong physical and cognitive damage, according to Doctors Without Borders on Friday. Doctors say malnourished children suffer from issues such as intestinal inflammation, vomiting and diarrhea, and suffer from recurrent infections because their immunity is diminished. Abdurrahman's mother, Ittimad Kilab.
He weighed about 12 kilos and had beautiful hair. But his hair started to fall out and he developed swelling in his legs. Before the famine, he didn't suffer from anything.
There is a massive shortage of food in Gaza region, and people are struggling, and whatever aid is pouring in. There are strong reports that Hamas is appropriating the whole thing for their own cadre and for their own purpose rather than that of the mass. So there is a crisis that is pretty much visible. We may not need a definition for that. But there are larger questions that United Nations will have to answer, and the sponsors of United Nations will have to answer. For example, the main sponsors of United Nations, who are in Western Europe and United States, they're far more busy in funding the war in Ukraine. They have pledged $400 billion since 2022 to arm Ukraine. I think that is more of a priority for the Western countries than actually ensuring that the issue in Gaza actually gets solved. But it is also a responsibility and a time for introspection for United Nations as to why since 1945 it has never been able to prevent a dispute from taking the shape of a conflict. What has been the role of United Nations in intervening and stopping conflicts? Why is it that United Nations simply toes to the line of what the Western country says? And giving these statements right now, what UN is saying, people may condemn and people may criticize Israel, but it's not going to help. It's pretty clear that there's a strong support for what Israel is doing from the Western backers of United Nations. So I think there is a complete requirement for overhaul of the multilateral institutions and to introspect as to whether United Nations and its peacekeeping forces have ever been able to prevent even conflicts and terror attacks wherever they are stationed. And second, invariably, is who listens to the United Nations today. Third, there are strong allegations of UNRWA when it was present in Gaza, having collusion with Hamas and the terror elements over there. So the problem is today, United Nations is saying that there is a humanitarian crisis, which is true, which is extremely unfortunate. But will it stop the whatever is happening? I don't think anybody is interested in stopping it, because most of the regions of the world, including South Asia, everywhere there are pertinent problems, ranging for decades, which have not been sorted out, and every region is busy with their own problems. Most of the time, people literally don't bother what is happening.